The Durand Corporation of America of Arlington, Virginia presents the Freedom School. What is freedom? Is it something provided by the state? Is it a natural condition? Do we, in the United States, have a free society? If we do, where did it come from? If we do not, how can we achieve it? My name is Dr. Jack Dent. It is my privilege to introduce this unique program, which has been designed to stimulate your thinking, possibly more than you believe possible. This program will consist of 20 videotapes, each 2 hours in length, on the subject of freedom or liberty. It will examine the nature of man from the mental, physical, and moral points of view. It will seek to discover whether there are fundamental principles guiding and directing human beings. If such principles exist, what are they? The program will also probe the market, asking questions concerning the economy. What is the marketplace? What is meant by the law of supply and demand? How does money work? Why are we in this country experiencing so many tragic consequences to so many well-meaning policies and practices which we have long since adopted? In addition, we will ask about the nature of government, of human organization. How can we put the pieces together to improve the human condition? This entire 40-hour presentation is the result of a week-long seminar conducted by one man with approximately 30 enrollees. This program is unrehearsed and uncensored. It happened the way you will see it and hear it. Some of what you see and hear you will doubtless agree with. Other things will be said or done with which you may disagree. Pro or con, you will be interested and stimulated, we promise. This videotape presentation is the property of Durand Corporation. No commercial use may be made of any part of the presentation without written permission first had and obtained from Durand Corporation. The man who will conduct the Freedom School is a unique individual named Robert LeFevre. Mr. LeFevre has a fascinating background. He's a college dropout who founded a college. The only degree ever conferred upon him was an honorary LL.D. He has no legal credentials as a teacher and therefore is not a teacher. As a non-teacher, he has instructed more than 10,000 students in small groups from coast to coast over a 25 to 30-year period. In so doing, he has become one of the founders of what is called the libertarian movement. Mr. LeFevre is a former actor, playwright, businessman, hotel owner and manager, real estate broker, restaurant operator, soldier, salesman, the editor of a daily newspaper, anchorman for a television news program, news director in TV, news commentator on radio, newspaper columnist, and the author of a half-dozen books. He is also happily married, has 3 sons and 7 grandchildren, and a cat named Fritz. It is my pleasure to present Mr. Denison Smith, president of the Durand Corporation of Arlington, Virginia, who will introduce the instructor for the Freedom School, Robert LeFevre.
I just want to give you a little bit of background before I introduce Bob. I'd like to go on and on here because this all means a great deal to me, but I'm going to keep it short because I want to get Bob to you as fast as possible. But let me just say that in 1963, I was having a great time in my sophomore year at the University of Colorado. I had 14 years of school under my belt, and I really hadn't learned anything about thinking, which I'm sure a lot of you won't find very surprising. And I heard about a place called the Freedom School in Colorado Springs, where people were studying liberty and individualism. My brother and Randy and I attended what at that time was a 2-week course, and this didn't take place all at once, but attending that session has changed my view of nearly everything, and it's taken 16 years to sort out all of the ideas that were presented to this. There have been so many of them, and they're presented so rapidly. And this seminar is the result of some of us wanting to share these ideas with you. And I'll pick on Dan here, because I've known Dan for 17 years, a close friend, and I've never been able to completely explain what this experience meant. And it's very difficult in the course of personal relationships to convey these ideas. So we wanted you to come here with us and share these ideas and share the experience with Bob. Now, cours de vérité is something we thought up, heart of truth. I personally feel that we should, during our lives, look for the truth, search for it. This means that we have open minds and that we can change our minds. It means it's feeling that it's not enough to be encapsulated in a dogma that makes us comfortable. It means that we should seek, challenge, and continually to seek the truth. This time we're going to share together is a very special time, a time of intensive ideas, and believe me, I don't have to tell you that it's almost impossible to get all of us, when we get a little older, from our busy schedules to set aside some time to do some thinking about ideas. It's really difficult. And so that makes the time that much more special. This week we'll build one block at a time, each one adding to the session before it. And it's extremely necessary to attend all of the sessions for that reason. If you miss any of them, you've really missed something important, because each, as I say, builds on the other, and each builds into a whole and adds to it. All of us, and this is what I experienced in 1963, have spent a lifetime about thinking about solutions to problems that everybody faces and thinking about solving them in one way. We spent a lifetime thinking of one way to solve problems. What we're going to do here for 5 days is think about solving problems in another way, a different way. I'd like to read a quote from Bob Kephart, Bob Kephart is the former publisher of Human Events, and he now publishes a couple of really widely read newsletters. One of them is called Tax Angles. He says in a letter he recently wrote, Bob LeFevre is one of the great teachers of the philosophy of freedom and the free market. He has profoundly influenced the lives of a great many people, including my own. I believe history may record that Bob and a small handful of relatively unknown men, F.A. Harper, Leonard Read, Andrew J. Galambos, have kept alive the ideals of individual liberty during an age of rampant statism. I very much feel that way, and I personally would like to say that in my opinion, and I think you'll discover this, Bob is the greatest thinker and teacher of our time. That's my opinion. And at this point, I give you Bob LeFevre.
Thank you very much, Denny. I wish the very generous, very flattering remarks were even half deserved. But we're going to have some fun here this week. And although I will be throwing a lot of ideas at you, they aren't that hard to field, and we're going to have a lot of fun. One of the things I think that is important and that I wanted Denny to say to you, but since he didn't, I'll try to get it in. I want you in your dress to be relaxed and comfortable. Now, maybe this is just me, but I am never comfortable in a tie. Now, if you gentlemen are comfortable in a tie, wear one. Wear two, whatever makes you feel good. But if you feel better, sort of relaxed, and then feel better. And the same goes for the ladies. The dress is informal, and the mood physically is relaxed. Mentally, no. Physically, yes. Okay? I think the very first thing in order would be for us to begin to get acquainted. I know a couple of you very well because you've been in prior sessions, but the rest of you, I've met you, some of you briefly, some not at all, and insofar as you are related to the other, there is virtually no relationship. So in some cases, I beg your pardon. I realize there's a relationship. Probably what we'd best do would be to start right here, since you had the misfortune of choosing that chair, or having it chosen for you. And why don't you stand and wait till I finish telling you. And then sort of turn about and tell these people your name and what you do and to whom you do it and whatever, and give us just a little bit of a background, and then we'll all be better acquainted with you. And if we can, let's put ourselves on a first-name basis for the week. It'll be a lot easier if you don't mind. Okay?
I'm Chris Wellens, and I had the good fortune of meeting Bob last night at a reception that was presented by Bob Kephart here in Alexandria. I'm associated with Bob Kephart, and I'm going to be taping the presentation this week for Bob and Kephart Communications. And I'd like to get to know each and every one of you during the course of the week.
Thank you, Chris. And how long have you been with Kephart?
Well, I'm relatively new, just for the past few months, in fact.
Are you married?
Yes, I am.
Children?
No children.
No children. Denny will explain this later. Okay. Thank you, Chris.
As far as I know.
Okay.
Yes, I'm Georgia Wellington Smith. I'm married but currently estranged. I'm a banking and corporate lawyer for Werner Lifford, Bernhard McPherson in Washington, D.C. Do a lot of corporate banking, sometimes a little international work.
Thank you very much. I won't ask you a single thing.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm Randall Smith. You met my brother Dennis Smith who did the introductions, and of course Bob is a good friend. I went through the session in '63 and second what Denny said about the sessions. And I'm a partner with Denny and Dan Kiley and a few of the other fellows you'll see here in Durand Corporation of America, a financial holding company in Northern Virginia, engaged in a huge number of things in the financial markets.
Thank you, Randy. If you please.
I'm Lucy Kiley, and I guess I'm related to Durand. My husband's Dan Kiley. And I'm really looking forward to doing this because I'm a housewife and have 2 little kids, and it's kind of fun to get that old brain back in gear again. And I'm really interested in the freedoms, and I'm also very interested in the freedoms that Bob personally was caught up in and that kind of thing.
Thank you, Lucy.
I'm Dan Kiley, and I'm the guy who's been trying to figure out for 17 years why I made such an influence on Denny and Randy. I tried to take this in Wichita last year, but I was too busy practicing it to take the course, I think. I'm with Durand and basically involved in real estate wheeling and dealing.
Thank you, Dan.
I'm Pat Pointer. I'm with Electronic Data Systems. I'm a federal marketing representative. And I've been trying to understand this through Dan's interpretation of what Dan I'm even working.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Shall we cross the aisle?
I'm Pat Howard, and I'm from Portland, Oregon, and I'm related to Denny's wife, brother, and I work for PHA Life Insurance Company as the accounting manager, and married just recently. Very happy to be here, and I'm sure we win the award for the farthest distance to travel.
Thank you, Pat.
I'm Pat's wife, Mary, from Portland, Oregon. Not gone. And let's see, we have 2 children at home. I'm from a previous marriage, and almost 5 months with another one. And I'm an entertainer out in Oregon.
Thank you. We'll talk about that later.
Hello, I'm Roger Moore. I'm with Weaver Brothers here in Washington, commercial realtor. I've known most of the Durand fellows now for probably 5 or 6 years. We try to do business together upon occasion, and it's most enjoyable. And as a commercial realtor, I probably appreciate free enterprise as much as anyone could.
Thank you, Roger.
I'm Bill Kale. I'm with Tullock Management Company. I happen to trade commodities. I live with a wife, 3 daughters, and a mother-in-law.
You're qualified. Thank you, Bill. May we call you Bill? I see I have a William down here, but that's the same fellow, right?
Hi, I'm Tom Caston. Known Danny since Colorado University back before he met Bob. I attended an economics course which kind of changed my life. The professor didn't make any sense to me, and it took me a long time to figure out why he didn't. He said, among other things, that there were some naturally occurring monopolies in this world, and that's why we had to regulate them. And I'm currently in the cogeneration business, trying to take the business away from one of those naturally occurring monopolies and have a heck of a we live in New York City, have 2 of our own children and 2 foster children.
Thank you, Tom.
I'm Wes Teague, and I'm also associated with the Durand family, sort of what it is. And I've known a number of them for 5 years or so, and again, it's one of those things that teach me what you're trying to tell me. And I'm looking forward to it. No marriage and no children.
Thank you, Wes.
Dog.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Cynthia Walter, and I'm a flight attendant for American Airlines. I have met Bob LeFevre. Well, I met him about 10 years ago. My mother attended his seminar. No, longer than that. My mother attended the class in Colorado. I attended when I was 17, again when I was 18, and this is my 3rd time. Totally unfamiliar with the Durand family corporation.
Thank you, Cynthia. Right behind Cynthia.
I'm Tom Atkins. I'm associated with Durand also, and I have the 2 most beautiful kids in the world.
Tom Atkins?
Atkins, right.
Thank you.
I'm Phil Miller. I'm also a member of the Durand group, and I'm married and have 2 lovely children. I see some familiar faces here. We're looking forward to the week.
Thank you.
I'm Dick Shea. I'm also with Durand. I'm very proud to say that. I've been with them since September 15th of this year. I run the commercial real estate division, and I'm looking very much forward to being here this week on Denny's high recommendation. I think it'll bring us all very close together and learn a little bit more about what's going on in the world. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Thank you, Dick.
I'm Ralph Smead from Caldwell, Idaho. I don't have anything to do with the Durand Corporation. I had a little something to do with Denny and Randy's. They needed a letter of recommendation to go down to Bob LeFevre's school in 1963. I wrote it. I can't imagine anybody else having written one. In any event, after that, I met Bob LeFevre in 1965 on my way back from the summer session at the Foundation for Economic Education in Irvington. And it was right after the mudslide. It just slid down off the whole damn mountain, just come down and slid through Rampart College and Bob LeFevre. But they had just dug out at the time, and the hospitality and the warm and friendly atmosphere there overcome the mud. I bought several books that were pretty muddy as a result of the mudslide from Bob at a reduced price.
We sold them to call them dirty books.
They were dirty books. I still have a copy of Ludwig Mises' anti-capitalistic mentality. Had quite a little influence on my thinking. I'm sorry that this is the first time that I've had the opportunity to take the session at Bob's. And in Idaho, I'm somewhat of an activist in the libertarian affairs. We have a rather lively one going on in Idaho. It started with Cats and Printers. Some of you that have read very much libertarian literature may have heard of Cats and Printers. It also comes from Idaho. Call up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph.
My name is Sam Cassio, and I'm president of a general commercial printing firm called Cassio Wolf Incorporated. We, among other things, print the publications for Kephart Communications, Tax Angles, and Personal Finance. And I've known Bob for, I guess, almost 19 years now. It's been his printer in one form or another. And I'm taking it because I really understand Bob to be a very true and honest person. And Bob highly recommended it, as did his assistant, Janet Faust. And I'm here. I look forward to it.
Thank you very much, Sam.
I'm Colleen Shelley, and Denny and Ruth Ann Smith, they've had the good fortune of putting their children in the school, of which I'm the administrator.
Thank you.
I'm Bill Conway. I'm a partner with Dan Kiley and the two Smith characters. Like Dan, I've been trying to figure out what's been happening for a long time. And a couple things, I know just about everybody.
Oh, great. Thank you.
I'm Sarah Cuneo, and I don't really have anything to do with the Duran Corporation, except for the fact that there's a few of the guys that let me run my fingers through their hair because I'm their barber stylist. And I said to Dan, I said, are you sure I'm going to understand this? He said, well, we'll have something to talk about in the barber shop.
No, thank you very much. Denny thanks you, too.
I probably could use a haircut, so I might have to come to you. My name's Glenn Holsche, and I'm also associated with Durand as a financial planner. My distinction here is that I've known Denny and Randy for, I guess, about 7, 8 years. I'm the only person in the room that's been with them, left, and then came back. As Denny says, lightning strikes twice, so I'm an example of that. I don't have any children of essence other than 2 dogs, and that's a lot, let me tell you. I'm single, and I'm looking forward to the information I'm going to learn here because I think it's very important.
Thank you very much.
I'm Ruth O'Hagan. I'm associated with the Smith Brothers organization. I'm here because I have an open ear.
Thank you, Reeds.
My name is Earl Voss. My main claim to distinction here, I'm sure, will turn out to be that I'm the father of Steve, who's sitting next to me, who gave me this course as a Father's Day present. I'm very grateful to join the Durand cell here this evening. I hope for a good share of the sessions. I don't know if I can stay through all the time or not. That will become apparent in a moment. You should know that I hear a lot of things here that are familiar to me. Weaver Brothers gave me the first mortgage that when we had our first house, a very small one, in which Steve grew up. He wouldn't want me to mention that. I'm basically a newspaper man, was diplomatic correspondent of the Washington Star for 12 years. Then went to an institute that I think many of you may have heard of, the American Enterprise Institute, as Director of International Studies and later as Assistant to the President. I won't go into all these other things. I was the Research Director for Bob Griffin when he was Senate Minority Whip. And what I dread to tell you is what I'm doing now, which is I'm Chief of the Policy Interpretation Branch in the Department of Energy. And I would remind you all that this is a discussion about freedom and liberty. I'll take you on individually, but not as a group. I'll mention one other thing. I don't know this for a fact, but I think that Secretary Schlesinger is on the right side of this argument that's going on right now. He's trying to reduce, if not abolish, the allocation system.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Voss. My relationship to the Durand Group is that I am a competitor. I am a brokerage house. The only one here, right? In some senses, we don't direct head-to-head on anything, but I own a brokerage house in Springfield called Voss & Company. And no children, single, and have been leaning in all of these directions for a long time anyway.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
I'm Ruth Ann Smith, and I'm part of the Durand family also. I used to pack sack lunches for Randy, Bill, and Denny 10 years ago and answer their phone on my noon hour and support Denny for the first year of Durand. So I'm happy to be here after attending a session last year.
Glad to have you, Ruth Ann.
I'm Doug Casey. I'm unrelated to the Durand family because I'm a hardcore unemployable. I have known and loved the Smith boys, however, since I met them in 1974. And the reason that I've loved them is because I've never found anything that I could argue with them about in the realms of politics or economics.
Thank you very much. Loy, why don't you stand and say who you are?
Well, okay, I'm one of the co-founders of the Freedom School, wife of said Bob LeFevre up yonder for over 35 years, mother, grandmother, all about to be great-grandmother pretty soon if our grandson gets married pretty soon. I'm a former entertainer, opera singer, movie star, and everything else.
Well, thank you all very much. I think this is a very good thing to do, though it does take a little time. Denny told you briefly of the mechanics. Actually, there are some other things that could be mentioned. The books that I have put in front of your places become your property. There are some of you that sat at the back that didn't get any books. We have some books up here in front, indicative of the idea that we thought you would sit up front. But this is a study of freedom, as we've been told and reminded of by Earl. So thank you. Does that take care of everyone? Does everyone have books? This will be the opening increment. There will be other books handed out every day during the session, and we do have them up here, but I would appreciate your not taking them from here. If you just leave them there, we will distribute them at the appropriate time. I will request that you do as much reading as you can find time to do in between the sessions. All of the reading that you can do will be helpful. However, since we are going to have you in here as much of the day as we will have you here, I am not anticipating a great deal of reading. Nonetheless, any that you can come up with will assist. The whole purpose of our session is to make use of our minds and to get them into gear, to take an entirely different look at man and the situation that he is in the hopes that by doing it this way, we may be able to come up with superior or some pluses somewhere along the line. We want to, and you will probably hear me use this phrase frequently during the week, we want to maximize human well-being. Now, I think with all that has been said, and each of you has identified yourself, I should explain a little bit about myself. As you can tell by my name, LeFevre, there is some French in there somewhere. And we French are a very volatile people, as you know, and we tend to become explosive and dramatic, and we wave our arms and shout, and I do these things without sometimes knowing that I'm doing them. I don't mean to be. I've always had an image of myself as being very sedate and this sort of thing, and then I find myself becoming very emotionally involved in things and very intense. So if you see me doing this, please understand that it is genetic. I don't mean any personal insult, but I can become very insistent and wave my arms and do all these things, and all you have to do, if you see me doing that, say, "Oh, come on, LeFevre, settle down," and I will. I really am a very nice fellow, but you will not know that at times because I will be so positive and so on, and I don't mean to be that way, but I'm letting you know the difficulty you're in by being here. So just being honest about it. I have put on this session a great many times. I have no idea how many. I have done it for one firm for over 160 times, just with that one firm. And I have done more than that. So I have no idea how many times I've done it, and I'm going to tell you what's going to happen to me. I will be getting excited during this week. And it's the same material I've been talking about for 20, 25, maybe 30 years. And I know it's going to happen because it always does. I'm going to get excited. I hope it becomes exciting to you. If it doesn't, that's all right. You know, you write your own ticket. But if you see me getting excited, you'll please understand that I can't help it. Okay. Another thing I should warn you about in respect to myself. I have a sense of humor that crops up sometimes at awkward places. And so I will probably be having a very good time this week. Regardless, one further bit of warning. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be saying things that in some cases I can predict will be shocking, distressing, and I don't mean to say they will be pornographic. That's not it. I will be making statements that will perhaps strike right at the root of things that you may believe in, that you may even believe in almost sacredly, and I may say things about them that will disturb you profoundly. Please do not take it personally. I may indeed slap a brand on your sacred cow, and if I do, understand I didn't know it was sacred. I just thought it was a cow. And if I do, that, forgive me, because I'm not here to affront you, although indeed I may. But I'm letting you know about these things in advance, hoping that I will obtain your forgiveness in advance if I do come down heavily on your pet corn, changing the image there, because I don't really mean to do that, but I may inadvertently do so. Now, we're going to be talking, first of all, about the nature of man. Let me give you a quick outline of what we will be covering through the next 5 days. Tonight we're here to get acquainted, and we've started the process. It's going to take us the full 2 hours to do it, and then we won't really be through with it either. But then starting tomorrow, we will be taking up the nature of man, and we're going to have a little different view of man, perhaps, than we have had before. So I'm going to spend a part of the time tomorrow examining the nature of man, and in process we will examine the epistemology, the definitions of the words we will use, the periphery of the ideas we will be discussing, and in other words, a general formulation of where we're going, but fundamentally looking at man qua man to see what kind of a critter we are and how we function, what we do, and why we do what we do. So we'll be doing that pretty much tomorrow. That is Saturday. Then on Sunday and Monday, we're going to be taking up economics, but not in the traditional way that some of you are perhaps familiar with. We will be indeed studying certain economic principles and doing it in a way that I think many of you will find helpful, even though you may have studied economics before. The particular approach that I use will be perhaps a little different and helpful, and if not, at least challenging, so we should have some fun with that. And then finally, on the last 2 days, we will be taking up the nature of government and politics, and I do trust, Earl, if you have to leave, that you go and stay away, because if you come back, having missed some of the interim and walk in at the end when I'm talking about government and politics, it won't make much sense to you. So we have to take it a step at a time. In fact, Denny explained this at the opening, that we have certain building blocks that we put in to what amounts to a wall, or using another analogy, we have threads that we put into a tapestry, and if you leave out certain threads, the thing's going to have some gaping holes in it when you come to the end. So it wouldn't make any sense. But if you can stay through it and see each of these threads that we weave in, then it does create a tapestry that you can see is complete. So I hope that you'll plan either to take it or leave it. I hope you'll take it. So that's the program for the next week. Are there any questions about that? Now, one of the things that I want to be sure we establish among ourselves is this. It is important to me that I be understood, I will state things to you in a way that to me will be essentially clear. That doesn't mean it will be clear to you, obviously. Your background and mine differ. This is bound to be the case. And I may say something that to me sounds like the essence of clarity, and to you it will be simply swamp debris. Don't let me do that and get away with it. Insist that I explain it so that you know what I mean. Now, here is what is not necessary. It is not necessary that we reach agreement. That is not an essential at all. Indeed, I am somewhat in the corner with Albert J. Nock, who I believe remarked at one time that if two of us are identical in all respects, one of us is superfluous. And I'm inclined to lean in that direction, so I don't anticipate that you will imitate my thinking or duplicate it. This is not an essential. Indeed, it is I would be a little frightened of it. We don't want that. We merely want an honest examination, an open mind, and your own conclusions. Now, here are the kind of questions that you will probably, if you are inclined to question, you will probably wish to ask, and then when you ask that type, you will find yourself increasingly frustrated. You will ask me to explain something that I already have on the agenda to explain at a later time in the session, because I know that we have in this group some extremely able minds, and you will presume, on the basis of certain statements that I will make, you will presume the direction I'm taking and the conclusion that you believe I will be taking, and you will want me to state it at that time. And I won't do it. Instead, I will postpone it because, and this is a very important point to grasp, I may not be reaching the conclusion that you think I will. And were I to get into a discussion of the conclusion that I have in mind, at the juncture where the question first arises in your mind, I would have to move away from the main thrust of my argument and come in from another tangent in order to show you why the conclusion that you are anticipating is not the one that I will reach. Rather than do that, which would take up too much time, and we will not have a maximum of time in this mere 5 days, I will simply say, well, I'll be dealing with that subject or that question, and I can pretty well pinpoint about the time that I'll be doing it, if all goes well. And then I'll tell you, we'll be talking about that at such and such a time. I hope you will understand this and deal with it, because this is a different type of presentation than probably any of you have experienced before in most teacher-student relationship that arises, as I'm sure you remember, even though it may have been years that most of you were in college. The professor lectures to you from his notes, and you copy his notes, and if you are a good note taker and have a good retention, you can play back to the professor what he told you earlier and thus get a good mark. The material need not have passed through the mind of either the professor or the student. I don't do it that way. What I will be tending to do will be to challenge you. I will be, in a sense, needling you. But I will do it in a way that isn't exactly a needle. And you may not detect what I'm doing, and so it will be a little different experience. I tend to try to get you to think in advance of where I'm going, but in process, I don't take you there, I let you go there. You see, what is important, ladies and gentlemen, is that you reach your conclusions, not that you adopt mine. What if I'm wrong? I could be wrong. Anyone can be wrong. The point is that you must do your own thinking. Now, we Americans are prone to want to get to, quote, the bottom line. Okay, LeFevre, what does this mean? Get right down to cases. I won't do that. See, the bottom line is going to be in your mind, not mine. So I'm going to attempt to put into the hopper enough material so that you can reach your own bottom line. That is the important bottom line. Yours, for you. Now, I've reached one for me. That was important for me. You might not like mine. Well, I might not care much about yours either. But that's all right. We don't have to. The point is that we must do it ourselves. This is an approach for you to think through. Had that not been the case, I could have saved you time and money by writing each of you a letter and putting in it the bottom line. Then you could have stayed home. But we don't have such a procedure because it is the process itself that we wish to experience together. That's the important thing. And so that's what we're going to attempt to do. Are there any questions on that? Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have all been on this tired old planet long enough to know that there is such a thing as a cause-effect situation. Cause-effect. We do certain things so that certain consequences will ensue. Obviously, the more we know in a given area about all of the ramifications and factors in that area, the more competent we are to anticipate effects. The less we know, the chancier it is. If we know nothing at all, we might know that there will be an effect, but we have no idea what it would be. So, obviously, the accumulation of information and knowledge is very important to us. But we are well aware of the cause-effect relationship. We take step A so that we will arrive at result B. This is a perfectly normal and proper procedure. We take step A to get to step B. Here is one of the problems that we begin to run into. Most of us in school and probably since school have been taught and indeed have practiced emphasis. We've placed emphasis upon what we are after, the goals. And that is not wrong in itself. Indeed, it is essential. We have to have goals and we have to aim at them. And so we become very goal-oriented. We aim at what we want. We learn that to get there, there are certain steps that have to be taken. All of those steps I'm encapsulating in the single letter A, but it could be quite a complicated formula here, comprising A. And then, if we do that correctly, we would come to B. And thus we think about B a great deal, our objectives, our goals, and we go to work to accomplish those goals in the appropriate manner based upon our knowledge, our wisdom, our desire, our ambition, etc. Very well. The difficulty many of us experience here is not in this process, but we become so wrapped up in this little rascal that we often conclude that cause-effect amounts to nothing more than isolated pairs. You take step A and it leads to result B, and that is the end of the process. Indeed, in most cases, it is not. B is merely a result that in its own nature will probably be a cause of something else. And so you aim at B, but don't think beyond it. The consequence is C emerges. Well, you probably suspected that, though you never focused on it. But C will also go on and lead to D, and D perhaps will lead to E, and E is a disaster. Had you taken the time to think beyond what you wanted, you perhaps would have detected that. But we tend to examine the costs, not of the consequences, but of the causes, that lead to consequences, not realizing that in the consequence itself, we may set in motion lines of force that lead to ultimate debts that will have to be paid, that might in fact nullify some of the merit of the objective that we had we thought it through. That's a possibility. There is also a very good possibility that if we stop being hypnotized by our own desires as to what we want and making that too overpowering for us, that there might be another way of arriving at B rather than by the generally accepted formula A. We might find, for example, that if we had started at M, gone to N and O, that combination would have taken us to B. And that had we used that approach, instead of coming from B to C, we would have gone from B to F and skipped all of that, and thus avoided the difficulty. It is, see, I'm not trying to suggest to you that of necessity, every unthought through consequence is going to be bad. That is not true. Sometimes you fall into one and luck out. You didn't think about it, but gee, this is just great. That does happen. It happens quite a bit. But also the other happens. And it would be very important to be aware of this, that we live in the kind of a world where cause-effect are in the main, again, there may be exceptions, but in the main, cause-effect are chains of consequence and not isolated pairs. So that when we initiate a line of activity, it is not merely an act of activity leading to another act and the curtain comes down. It is instead an act leading to an act, leading to an act, leading to an act, and so on, perhaps ad infinitum. Now that gives us a different view of the nature of the world that we are in if we will ponder that for a bit. In addition to that point, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to offer and will attempt to establish with you this week that man by his nature is a creature of uncaused cause. That not only does he react to causes which impinge upon him, but that he is indeed an innovator in a true sense and causes things that originate with himself. So we have an extremely interesting, versatile, unpredictable, fascinating creature to look at, ourselves. And it is in the hope that we will understand ourselves a little better and how we work and some of the fundamentals respecting the way we work that we hope to maximize human well-being, particularly in the areas relating to the two great problematic areas of our time, economics and government, which today, as I look at it, appear to be the two lingering areas of superstitious fear in the United States. So I want to deal with those. Are there any questions concerning the remarks I've made up to this point? I take it by the fact that there are no questions that you understand me. Whether you agree or not is immaterial. Okay? Now we come to a very important point. This deals with my getting to know you a little better than just being able to identify you by name, which I still haven't quite worked out, but I'll get there. So I want to know a little bit of what goes on inside of you, and to aid me in making that discovery, I have a device here called a quiz. I knew you'd be pleased. Now, this is not a hanging offense to take it, or even a hanging offense to miss a question here or there. You understand? What I have here are little quizzes. Each one is 50 questions. The first 25 questions are true or false. Now, that is the worst possible type of quiz. You know it. I know it. Now you know that I know it, but I use it anyway. And the reason is that it isn't all that bad for my purposes. You see, most professors avoid the true or false quiz because it does not give you a chance to play back to them what they've already told you. Since I've told you virtually nothing, there's no chance for me to get a playback, and so I want you to tell me things before I tell them to you. Therefore, what true false does for me, it helps to show me what your opinions are. Now that's important from my point of view. You see, I am not nearly as concerned with the factual background that you may have. Some of you indeed have formidable factual backgrounds. Technologically, you could probably take the particular area of your expertise and leave me agape marveling at the profundity of your knowledge in these areas. And I'm not joking. I'm sure that you could. And that is important. It is extremely important. But, ladies and gentlemen, I am not so concerned with the facts as I am with what they may have done to you as a human being. I'm concerned with the attitudes that you have in respect to the economic area, in respect to the governmental area, but primarily I'm concerned with the attitude you have to you. How do you look at yourself? Who are you? I obviously don't mean to probe. It's none of my business. But do you know? Well, all of this then emerges out of your attitudes, your opinions, and the way you have organized not merely the factual data which provide your background, but your forward thrust as a human being. That is of primary concern to me. So this first 25 questions, while it appears or may appear to you to be really not so hot, it's quite warm for me. And it should give me some very helpful information. Now, the second group of questions, another 25, is multiple choice. That's the second worst type, as we all know. And that gives me some additional background that I might not have had to obtain due to the fact that you are, most of you at least, as closely tied into Durand as I am now learning. Though there are exceptions, which I'm happy to see. I'm happy to see you all. I don't want to be misunderstood. But it is very important to me to see the two of these areas and how they interrelate. Sometimes people have developed attitudes and opinions based upon their backgrounds, and thus the two areas are consistent. And sometimes people have developed opinions and attitudes that seem to be wholly separated from their backgrounds, which is fascinating. And one wonders how the gap was bridged, but it has happened. And so this is important to me, too. And that's all it is, just those two areas. So I will pass these papers out among you. I will ask you each, please, to identify yourself on the paper by putting your name on it. And then just go ahead and answer the questions, if you will, please. I must tell you a couple of other things about the quiz. Next, the questions are loaded. And the second item I would like to say is I'm not going to be any help to you. So if you read it, and as you read a question, it seems to you that it might be interpreted two or three ways, don't ask me which way I want you to interpret it. You interpret it your way. I'll catch on. And you take it from there. So if you ask me questions after you get the paper, my response is going to be no comment until you're all through. Okay? But now before I hand out the papers, I will accept questions. Do any of you have any? Do you all have something to write with? If you don't, I think Denny can help. Okay? Then we will just... this will probably take only a few minutes. It's not that complicated. But we'll take it from here. And there will be other things afterwards to take care of. I already know from having looked at a few of these that this class is going to make an outstanding group. There's an enormous amount of information in this room. So it should be really a truly different and outstanding week. Now, in the time that we have left, there are a couple of points that I can make that will become useful to us from here on, and I wanted to use the balance of our evening to get these into the record. We are going to be talking during this week almost entirely about ideas, concepts, abstractions, philosophy, and so on, which is not normally how we spend our time. The problem is going to be one of communication. Communication is a very delicate thread at best. We can say things and say them as clearly as we know how and talk to a dozen people and create a dozen different conclusions. As we certainly well know, if any of us have ever had to handle a stable of reporters, as I have. You could send 3 or 4 reporters to cover a story, and you'll get 3 or 4 different versions of what happened. Sometimes you're not even sure that all of the reporters went to cover the same story by the time you read them all. And that is the way people are. And this is the trouble when we get to communicating. When we get to communicating in the abstract area, the trouble is multiplied by a very large factor. It becomes increasingly difficult to communicate with precision what is exactly meant. Now, there is one thing that we tend to do in the development of the language itself that makes it possible for us to at least have a rudimentary communication at abstract levels. The human mind, ladies and gentlemen, functions best when it is able to make comparisons. When we can take an idea and contrast it to another opposing idea, somehow that helps us understand the first idea by seeing it outlined against a second. We can bounce things off against other things and in process learn what the bouncer is. It's a very interesting thing. We human beings have actually very good minds. It's one of the best pieces of equipment we have, the brain. But it is limited. We don't know everything. None of us know everything. Indeed, none of us know everything about any one thing, let alone everything about everything. So we are very much ignorant in a great many areas. And the way that we learn is by making contrasts. So much so that in the development of our languages, we have more or less insensibly done something which makes it relatively convenient in a simple way here to communicate with abstractions. Our language has developed a 4-point scale of comparison, which I will call identities, similarities, dissimilarities, and opposites. And we use these in order to understand one another. So we have identities, similarities, dissimilarities, and opposites. And as I'm sure we all are aware, there is no one word that has any particular sacred or cosmic meaning. All of the meanings that we give to sounds have been developed through the years and are stipulated and understood and learned, and that's how we have our language, and that's how we have 100 other languages. We simply memorize and accept certain sounds as meaning certain things. So when we speak of identities, we are speaking of words let me just give you an example. I think this is the simplest thing to do. Let's use this word, hot. Now, we all know what the word means. We use it. It's a common word. It actually has no precise meaning, We don't know how hot might be in a given case. But we all know that what the word intends to convey is the idea of an intense thermal condition above whatever normal would be. We don't know what normal is either. But when we say something is hot, we mean there has been an increase in the temperature of that thing, whatever it is. Okay. Now, if I wanted to communicate to you the idea of hotness, and you had never heard the word hot before, and I started to say, wow, that light is hot. Yesterday was not hot, but tomorrow will be. The stove is hot, etc. Every time I say hot, you blank out. And finally you say to me, Bob, what in the world do you mean when you say hot? I've never heard the word before. Now, to communicate with you, it would do me virtually no good to say, well, you know what hot is. Hot is hot. That's an identity. In other words, when we are trying to define and communicate, we don't use the words that we intend to define in order to define the words that we're working with. I have a dictionary that does that to a degree. I looked up the word freedom in this dictionary, and the dictionary said, freedom is the state or condition of being free. Well, great, but that has not helped me particularly. It does not give me a contrast. You see, I'm still looking at the same words, and I know no more about them than I did. If we can find a word that conveys a similar idea, it can be helpful. A word that conveys a similar idea, not a similar word, but a similar idea to what we mean here, would be the word warm. We all know that warm is also an increase above the normal, but not to the extreme that hot would be. So we have hot, we have warm, and then dissimilar would be cool, and the opposite of hot would be, therefore, cold. And ladies and gentlemen, that is what we try to do in communicating with abstractions. We try to find what something is by finding out precisely what it isn't at the abstract level. Now, at the physical level, that is impossible. At the physical level, we have to go directly to the thing itself. What is the opposite of a lectern? There isn't any such thing. What is the opposite of a chair? A table or a bed or the floor? Well, you see, there is no opposite. But at the abstract level, we have invented opposites for purposes of communication. If you wanted to be precise, there probably are no such things either as identities or opposites in the universe. We only have things that are similar and dissimilar. But we have invented the concept of oppositeness, and we have invented the concept of identicalness in order to communicate at the abstract level. And thus we say beauty and ugliness are opposite concepts. And they are, as opposite as we can make them. But actually, if we are looking at the things themselves, they probably are not opposite. We just attribute oppositeness to them. But that helps us understand what we are talking about, believe it or not. We find something, and we find it at an abstract level, and then to understand what it is, we find something else that we mean to make the opposite of the thing we're talking about, and we may invent both of these in order to come up with an idea and communicate it. And this is a method that is common. We use it. Often we don't know that we're using it. We don't think about it. But it is a method to which I will have recourse during this week, especially tomorrow, in making definitions so that we are focusing in on the subjects that I want to talk about. Words, of course, ladies and gentlemen, are our servants. They are used to convey meaning. The real purpose of all communication is to exchange meaning, not words, meanings. The word without a meaning accompanying it is merely an empty sound. It's noise. So what we want to do is to convey meanings. In order to communicate meaningfully, we will have to agree as to what certain words will mean during this session. Now, I will be doing some of that tomorrow, specifying that when I use a particular word, a particular meaning will be entailed. I do not mean by doing this, I do not intend to convey the idea that I am going to become a pedantic grammarian and insist that you do this forever and ever, amen. That's not the idea at all. I really don't care how you use words. I'm only concerned that you understand me, and therefore I will assign or ascribe a particular meaning to a particular word. And by this process, you will know what I mean. Now, many times, and it may occur here, I am criticized for this because my students say to me, Bob, incidentally, my students call me Bob. I didn't explain that earlier, but I hope you will call me Bob. That's spelled with 2 B's and 1 O. Anyway, some of my students say to me sometimes, Bob, you're not fair on this because you only go to work to define things the way you want to. May I assure you of that? Of course I do. Naturally, I'm going to define the words the way I want to. I'm communicating, and I will define them any doggone way I please. I do this so that we can understand each other. Now, in doing it this way, I will, of course, insist on a particular meaning so that we understand each other. Because I have a tendency, it's a part of my nature, I've explained this already, to be very positive. Sometimes people think that I am endorsing something when I'm only defining it. I will, for example, insist that this is chalk. I'm going to be quite firm about that. This is chalk. I will not call it anything but chalk. Now, you can have other names for it. It's all right with me. But in this classroom, this little object here on which I will use this to write on the various boards, of which we seem to have 2 or 1.5, whatever. I will call this chalk. If this is difficult for you, I'm sorry. Away from here, you can call it anything you like. As far as I'm concerned, it's chalk. I'm going to do this with other things. Does this mean that I like chalk? Well, actually, I'm not particularly fond of it at all. Sometimes I can be far less than fond. But, see, I'm not going to endorse it. I'm going to be firm about it. It's chalk, okay? Now, I'm going to do the same thing with other ideas. I will insist that if we use a particular word, that it will convey a particular meaning. If that is not the meaning you wish to convey, then let's find a word that will convey the meaning you wish to convey. I will be giving you the words that I wish to use to convey meanings I wish to convey. Is that clear? That's what that's what I'm trying to say. I want to be in communication with you, and I'm going to be defining things as precisely as I know how. And even I will not be that precise. I will slip up here and there, and you will probably catch me at it, and then I will correct myself. I have no hesitancy in correcting myself, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very good at correcting myself from long practice. I have learned during my life by a process known as trial and error. I never learned a thing from trial and success. I always learned from trial and error. When I make a big mistake, I learn. Small mistakes I learn too, but big ones I learn a lot from a big one. So I have corrected myself many times, and I'm not at all averse to doing it again. I will try, however, to be precise and give you as little ammunition as possible to get at me. But I will probably do it. Okay. I hope I have made a contribution to your thinking and to what we will be doing as we get on from here tomorrow. Now, let me go from this point. Since we are going to be dealing with ideas and concepts, things of this sort, I'm going to start right this minute by dividing the phenomena that exists in creation into various categories, which I will refer to as orders. I'm using the term order, and during the class, actually, I will be using this word in two different ways. I will be using the word order in the present context to denote a category, such as the order of mammalia, the order of invertebrates, etc. In other words, a classification, a specific grouping. And I will use the word order that way. Additionally, I will use the word order later on to denote a condition separate and apart from chaos. In other words, order can be, the word itself can be used in 3, 4, 5 different meanings. Someone can give an order, which is to use it to relate to a command. I will try not to do that during the week. But I will use the word order and currently to denote a classification. There will be two major ones, well, in a sense, three major ones that we will be looking at during the week. The first of these I will call the objective order. What will I mean if I say that particular item is in the objective order? I will mean to communicate this thought. Anything that is in the objective order has independent existence apart from your knowledge of it. That is to say, it is. It exists. It is real. I did not say necessarily that it is visible. There are many things that are real that are not visible, but they are real. If they are real, they are objective. I might indeed use reality virtually as a synonym here, or fact. If something exists in itself, separate and apart from your awareness of it, then it is not dependent upon you for its existence. It is separate from you, and thus has an independent existence, and exists whether you know about it or not. Obviously, you don't know about something until you know about it, and therefore you wouldn't know of its existence until you know of it. Clearly, that is always true. But there are many things that you don't know about yet. There are millions of things that I don't know about yet. We are, all of us, in certain respects, profoundly ignorant. Now, I did not say, in case you are thinking I said, we are profoundly stupid. I didn't say that. There is a difference between being ignorant and being stupid. We are all ignorant. It goes with the territory. There are more things in this earth than we will ever learn. We don't occupy our little sphere on it long enough to learn everything about everything. So we will always be ignorant in certain areas. To be stupid is quite another matter. To be stupid is to insist on remaining ignorant when the information is available to you. Now, you don't have to be stupid. And I don't think there is much stupidity in the group. I haven't detected any of it thus far. So I think we've got a real sharp operation here. But ignorance, we all have. Of course. That's why we have learned to ask questions, because we really don't know everything, and we never will. Okay. But when we are dealing with the objective order, we will be dealing with fact, with things that exist independent of our knowledge or awareness of them. Thus, I'm saying at another level, man's journey through life is a journey primarily of adventure, discovery, experiment, rather than a journey of creativity, although, as we will see, he is also capable of creativity. But fundamentally, we go to work with what we find out there. It was there probably before we got there. It will probably be there after we leave. It is separate, distinct, and apart from us, but it is real. And we call it the objective. Anything that falls into that category, anything at all, that is objective. Incidentally, in this category, may I also point out that insofar as I am concerned, you are objective. You are real. And to show you how ignorant I have been, most of you I didn't even know existed until tonight. And yet each of you, I'm sure, would attest that you have been alive all this time. How do I know that? I only have your word for it. I know nothing about it, except in a few isolated cases where I have met you earlier, but most of you I have not known that you even occupied space on this planet. And look at you, here you are. And I continually run into this experience. You didn't know about my existence either, and possibly happily so. But in any case, we are now aware of the objective existence of the other. So we are gaining information rapidly as we see. Now, that is one of the orders, the objective order. Of equal importance is a second one called the subjective. What will I mean when I use the term subjective? I mean to communicate the idea that in this area, we will be dealing with phenomena that depend upon you as the subject for their existence. They are not separate from you. The first item that I would put here is reason. Without the human mind, there is no reason. Reason is not objective. It is subjective. It depends upon the subject to employ it. If he does not employ it, it will not be employed. Human reason does not exist separate from human being. If all of the human beings in this world were wiped out, there would be no human reason. Indeed, if all the human brains were wiped out, there would be no human reason, even though the human beings lacking brains would still be around. So, reason then is something that we add to the picture. It is not here without us. Additionally, not only is this true of reason, but it is true of opinion. Opinion is a human formulation, a view of things, a way of looking at reality. Your view, your judgment as to what something is and what something may mean. That is something that wouldn't exist without your judgment, without your observation. So this is subjective. It depends upon you. Without you, your view would not exist. It's not something I can walk down the street and find. I have to find you. Only you will have your opinion. And in the same category, we have value. There is no such thing as objective value. Value is subjective. You like or you dislike, hence you value or devalue everything more or less. Some things that I might value highly, you might devalue totally. Other things that I find not valuable, you might indeed find valuable. This is what makes a marketplace in many respects, and we'll have a lot more to say in that area as we proceed. But value does not exist without the human bringing it into focus. So nothing has any value separate from a person's evaluation process. Anything that you could think of is only valuable more or less to certain persons. That's it. So it is subjective. It depends on those persons for its existence. So that is the subjective area. Let me get the third one in. I won't be able to completely explain this tonight in the time frame that we have. And by the way, let me explain. I really am very insistent on the time frames being adhered to with great punctuality. So I like to stop on time and I like to start on time. Now, I can stop on time. That's my responsibility. And I promise to be good to you on that so that you can make your arrangements outside of here and count on being released when I say you will be. I will hope and anticipate that you will be good to me. And when I ask you to be here at a certain time, you will be here at a certain time. Okay. Now, the third area that we go to is called the conjunctive. And this is where we put these things together, the objective and the subjective, and come up with what we are looking for, which is called knowledge. One of the items of knowledge I have just acquired is that this is a lousy chalkboard. In fact, if it can be replaced, it would be a great benefit. Yes. Knowledge, ladies and gentlemen, of necessity, contains your opinion. It contains your view of something that is objective. The objectivity in itself does not entail knowledge because it doesn't entail an opinion. It just is. That which is, is. So when you and I learn about something that exists, and we learn about it accurately enough to form an opinion that is accurate, an accurate opinion is knowledge. It is still an opinion, but it can be an accurate opinion. Now, I know that it is more or less a common practice, and please, I'm not trying to change your habits. Behave any way you like. But in this classroom, I am going to use the term opinion to denote just this one area. I know it's common outside of this classroom to say of other people, well, all he has is an opinion. I happen to have the facts. That's how we put our friends down. I know he just has an opinion. The truth is, all any of us ever have is an opinion. That's what we deal with. We deal with opinions. The opinion is a reflection of reality, and it could be accurate, in which case it's knowledge. It could also be inaccurate. That's true. A very interesting point. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 3 levels here at the subjective. We can be accurate. I might add that we are pretty good. We have minds that are very good in looking at reality and detecting enough of its true character so that we can use that reality in advancing our own lives and saving our own lives. We can learn that much about things. That still doesn't mean that we know everything about it. But we have a pretty good record here. Indeed, as I have pointed out to other classes, your ancestors and mine, a long time ago, learned to accurately tell the difference between a saber-toothed tiger and a rosebush. Because those that couldn't accurately make that distinction didn't have kids. And so we have descended from successful types that could use our brains accurately. However, we are also capable of inaccuracies, which is a fascinating point. You see, ladies and gentlemen, that fact alone proves that our minds are not objective. Because reality is always correct. What is, is. I didn't say it's always something you like, but it always is what it is. It is always right. It is never wrong. You and I can be wrong. And that means that where we formulate opinions, we can be mistaken, which means that we are one step removed from reality. And we can take reality with us accurately, or we can miss and think we have reality, and we don't have it. And the third point, and the last I can crowd in tonight, is that in addition to these two, we have a creative facility. And the same mind that can be accurate or can be hallucinating or fantasizing can also be creative. Man is a fantastic creature. We have potential that we haven't yet dreamed of. There are things we can do that we are shackled to prevent ourselves from doing. And we can, maybe, if we learn enough about ourselves and how to unshackle, we can be free enough to do some things that need doing, and some of them perhaps haven't yet been tried. So, I don't dare talk anymore. That's the end of the night, and the time from here is yours. Thank you very much. I hope we're going to have a great week. I'm going to enjoy myself. I hope not at your expense, but I hope with you here. Thank you again, and tomorrow morning we get started at 8:29:30.